Hey, I'm Scott Fritz from Stranded on a Planet.
And I'm Marc Nelson from the Alley Recording Company, and you're watching GC Pro's The Top Shelf.
So today on the top shelf we have the Electronaut M63 2-channel tube preamplifier. I've had one in my studio for a while now and I've used it on a lot of recordings there. Today we're going to take it over to the Alley and use it on some sources there. What are you thinking?
Let's think. Grand piano, drum overheads, saxophone.
Nice. And as it turns out, Electronaut's actually based here in Chicago, so afterwards we're going to go to their lab, have a conversation with Roy Campbell, who designed the M63. Should be a blast, so let's check it out.
Hi, we're here at my studio at the Alley Recording Company to do a test on the Electronaut M63 on piano, grand piano that is, with S. Joe Norman. And we are using a pair of Schoeps CMC 6U, and we're not using any compression or EQ. Let's take a listen.
And now we have Joe Babiak playing some drums for us. We have a matched pair of Coles 4038s on the overheads running through the Electronaut M63.
And finally, we have Jeff Miller on the saxophone.
On the piano and sax, I would generally prefer a cleaner sound anyhow. And keeping the attenuate all the way up, bringing the trim up to do gain, worked great for that. Thought it was really cool with Joe, especially when he started rocking hard on the drums, to flip it around and then use the attenuate to bring it up. The trim cranked up, got really crunchy, especially when he was riding on the ride and hitting the snare hard.
Yeah, I'm sure that the actual ribbon, the actual 4038s, causing a very kind of soft transient in the first place, gave it a very vintage sound. But if you added, I don't know, some large diaphragm condensers, small diaphragm condensers in that set, it's going to make it a little more spiky, a little more, you know, sharp and larger sounding and not so blanketed. But I like the blanketed sound. That's my style.
Yeah, me too. But it was super articulate with the attenuate cranked and then just a bit of trim on the piano, especially the low end. It's great.
Well, the coolest thing that I liked was when we did the sax part. When you gave it a little overdrive, it actually gave it this very furry, hairy, kind of 60s sax thing, almost Stax Records, Motown sound, which was really cool.
For just having two knobs, you really can get a lot of sounds out of it.
Yeah, I think that's the key. With this thing, I mean, it's pretty simple, but it does have some choices. It does have a lot of headroom, but also you can actually shrink it and collapse it pretty quickly.
Yeah, and it varies pretty wildly, which is cool.
Yeah, so very, very nice piece.
What's up, buddy?
Come on in.
Hey, we're here in Chicago at the Electronaut headquarters. We have Dan Scalpone from GC Pro with us and Rob Roy Campbell, Chief Electronaut.
I guess the first thing we'd like to know is how'd you get your start?
Well, I'm a musician, and I grew up in a kind of a musical family. My dad had a band that practiced in our living room and would do his own recording on 4-track and stuff like that. And I was fascinated by the recording process from a young age and became a musician in my teenage years. And eventually, in my early 20s, I was really into recording and wanted better recording equipment. And didn't have access to that stuff, and somehow got the idea that I could make my own gear. And started just reading every book I could find on. I've always been interested in vacuum tube circuits, so I dug up a lot of old books at used bookstores and started reading them all and taking my guitar amplifier apart and playing around and studying other pieces of equipment and seeing if I could improve them and make them better. And eventually that led to designing my own equipment from scratch.
Tell us about the M63. It's a big unit, it's got a big sound. Tell us about your philosophy and what you were going for when you were designing the unit.
Well, you know, the first sort of prototypes that I built were borrowed heavily from tradition, I would say, you know. And then I started tweaking from there and trying to see what I could do to improve those sounds and stuff like that. And I became particularly interested in why something can measure worse but sound better. And I think that, you know, to me, that's a big area of interest. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what it is that people respond to when things are nonlinear. Because to me, you can have absolute linearity and total transparency. That's been achieved a lot of times. And a lot of times that ends up just sounding boring. So, you know, with the M63, the goal was really to try and make something that could be as close to transparent as possible, but also allowed a variety of sonic colors, you know, available to you. So you could push it and get some different sort of tone out of it. And so you can get a wide variety of harmonic response based on how you set up the gain stage, you know, and that was really a goal. Also, you know, using the components that I decided to use in the end had a major effect on the sonic performance. I use Lundall transformers throughout, which I love. They're, in my opinion, probably the best audio transformers in the world. I'm a big fan of the amorphous core Lundall transformers. They're just phenomenal sounding to me. They sound, there's a level of detail there that I'm just not usually used to hearing.
Yeah. So with new old stock tubes, there's a lot of hype regarding the quality that they have. And obviously they're in limited supply, so they're tough to get. Is the current state of tube production today subpar to that, or is that a smoke and mirrors issue?
Well, fundamentally, I think it's a supply and demand issue. I mean, I think that there are certainly tube manufacturers in the world today that are producing subpar quality tubes, I mean, for sure. But there are also still several manufacturers left producing excellent quality tubes. So I think there's no real cut and dry answer to that. There are many excellent tubes in the world to design new products around, that's for sure.
I want to give a big thank you to Dan Scalpone at GC Pro for coming out, and Rob Roy from Electronaut. For more information on the Electronaut, visit gcpro.com. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on the Top Shelf. Coming up next week on the Top Shelf, from the creators of the Access Virus synthesizer comes the Kemper profiling amplifier.